It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. The Sports Hit List presents Smoking Mirrors with Declan Krogman and the Polius Brothers, Greg and Stefan, breaking down the biggest news in sports, giving you the stories behind the story. Here for all the smoke, all the time, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Good afternoon, everyone. You're currently listening to Smoking Mirrors, presented by the Sports Hit List on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I'm your host, Stephen Polius, alongside my fellow hosts, Declan Krogman and Greg Polius. How you guys doing today? How was your weekend?
Good afternoon, first of all. First time back in the box yesterday, I'll say I had a good weekend. It felt good to be back after over a year.
Yeah, no, you look good. I watched those at-bats. There's some videos out there. You had some good swings.
Appreciate that.
What about you, Deck? How you doing?
Not too bad. Excited. Obviously, we got a great show today. We got Chuck Baldy and my father making their debuts on Smoking Mirrors.
Yes, indeed.
Couldn't be better, man. I had a nice weekend. Just chill, low key. We're all good, man. Can't complain. Very excited.
Nice. No one asked me, but my weekend was good too.
Well, we assumed it was good because you asked.
Asking doesn't mean it's good, but it was good. Actually, this week is my birthday week. I am turning a whole another year older on Friday.
So, Piazza.
Yeah,
all right.
To quote a very famous person, you are now 1 year closer to extinction.
I see. Insiders. That's cool. And you're right, I am. So there's that. But for now, we're going to talk some sports. It was a busy weekend. I think there was a lot going on. And for those of you who enjoy March Madness, you were probably going a little mad because there was a lot happening. I mean, you have 9 upsets in the first round of play, followed by another 4 in the second round. I mean, the second round's not over yet, so there could still be some more upsets that are out there. But in that first round, though, some notable ones. Obviously, you have Oral Roberts, which I had to look up where that's located. I didn't know. It's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But Oral Roberts, doing a great job against the second seed Ohio State, coming in as a 15th seed. And then a personal one, I thought that was kind of cool. Something local. You had Rutgers. Rutgers hasn't been in the dance, I think, for it's a decade. It's been about 10 years since
they haven't won in like 38 years in the tournament or something.
But just being in the tournament, I think. Just being in the tournament.
It's been a decade.
Shout out to Speedy. He just let us know that Oregon is up at the half over Iowa as well.
We appreciate those updates, Speedy. Keep those coming. Keep those coming. But, so we had quite a lot of upsets. It was really entertaining. I mean, a lot of close games, a lot of nail biters. I'll kick it to you, Deck. What'd you like? What were your teams? How's your bracket doing?
I'm in a bracket pool with about 35 people, and right now I'm chilling in second. I am so happy. First of all, and I'm going to try to make all my upsets quick. I had Cuse over Clemson. I had Rutgers over. Who the hell did they play again? Why can't
in the first round? Rutgers was Clemson. They played Clemson in the first round.
Oh, sorry, Rutgers, Clemson.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. Was it? Okay, and then who did Cuse play again? Because I had Cuse over somebody.
Syracuse.
It was a 3, right?
They played San Diego State.
So I had those 2 upsets. Then I had Loyola Chicago beating Missouri. That wasn't an upset. But then I had Loyola Chicago yesterday taking down Illinois, and they did just that. That got me so many extra points.
It wasn't even really close, though. Which
surprised me.
Yeah, not even.
I mean, the Fighting Illini were ranked in the top 5 for the majority of the season, so that's a huge upset.
I mean, that's the first 1 seed going down. But then you had another upset. I had Ohio in the first round. They were the 13th seed. They took
Virginia.
4th. Yeah, but I will be fair though. I did have Texas. I had Texas in my Final Four, and horrible. It didn't hurt me that much, but it still stinks. I got Houston winning it all though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. He used to win it all. I mean, that's something to look out for. That's today, right?
You know what this sounds like?
Chances.
I remember when I used to do brackets, I would do like a regular bracket, then I would do an upset bracket. It sounded like Declan went with the upset bracket here.
Oh, for sure.
Not even yeah. So great, Houston's losing. Anyway, thanks, Speedy. I didn't necessarily go with an upset bracket, but I didn't want to go. And there's you can go upsets and still take the chalk and go Gonzaga. I don't know a ton about college basketball in 2021, but I decided I was going to go with some stuff nice, that would feel pretty decent.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I think honestly, shout out to Carl, Coach Womack and Chuck. I think they put me onto Ohio. And I was like, I think Ohio can win. And they took that. But I did have Winthrop over Villanova. And that didn't go too well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to take some chances, man. You got to risk it to get the biscuit.
100%. And you, with your upsets that you chose, you already closer than most brackets are.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised, honestly.
I think everyone is. What about you, Greg? What is it looking like for you?
I mean, I didn't do a bracket this year personally, but just from the outside looking in, obviously you have Gonzaga as a favorite, but I had Illinois in the big game, in the championship game. So
in your mental bracket.
Yes, in my mental bracket. So that kind of went out the window. But I did tune in to Chuck and Coach Womack talking on the Sports Hitler's last week about their picks, and I believe they mentioned Ohio, and a couple other sleepers that would make good runs.
Yeah, I mean they did pretty good. Shout out, UConn. I think I had them picked at least in the one bracket over Maryland. James Bouknight went to middle school with him. Played baseball with him. He's 2 years older than me. I think he's 3 years older than me, but he was 2 grades older than me. He was kind of putting the team on his back. It was a tough. They kind of fell off towards the end. They got tired, but they put up a hell of a fight, and the Terrapins just kind of, herped them away.
Manny, as usual, as he is with his Raiders, in the comments is talking about Michigan taking it all.
Yeah, whatever.
How do we feel about
that? Speedy just put in the comments Michigan's losing today.
Yeah,
so we'll let them duke it out. We got a while before the commercial break, so Speedy can have some time on his hands to go at Manny's throat. I'm sure that'll be an exciting bloodbath in the comments.
Yeah, and as Declan said, you have the second round being played today, on Monday, the first half being played on Sunday, and then you have a few teams that are already in the Sweet 16. So it's exciting. It's definitely been exciting March Madness so far. It's been madness. But moving along into the next big news of the weekend,
hold on, before we get to that, okay. I just want to speak to, because a lot of people may wonder why these upsets are happening at this rate. Boy. Yeah, and I think it has a lot to do with the blue bloods of college basketball not being viewed as, the quote-unquote blue bloods. Yeah, they'll get the top now it's Duke, UNC,
Kentucky.
Who else? Kentucky, yeah. Programs like that are normally in your top 5, top 7 teams every year that are usually picked to win it all, get the best recruiting classes all the time. But what's happening is guys are realizing they don't have to go to these premier blue blood universities to get into the league. If you look into the league right now, some of the best players in the league have come from mid-major schools. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. All these guys came from John Morant. They came from small-time schools. And what it's showing is that you don't necessarily need the media coverage behind you if you ball out in college.
I mean, John Morant's living proof.
Yeah, he went to Murray State, and people didn't know about him unless you're a real basketball head until he got to the tournament.
Yeah, and turned some heads on that.
And I think we're gonna see more upsets like this in the future, because not only is it the blue bloods, kind of losing their steam, in my opinion, but it's a lot easier for a mid-tier recruit, like in the top 100, but he's on the back half, to go to an Oral Roberts and shine than going to a UNC and sitting on a bench for a year and change.
Yeah. Oral Roberts, by the way, that's insane that they were able to pull over the upset over Ohio State and Florida, created some nice memes. I mean, Oral Roberts, that just sounds like an old school baseball player. Like he definitely played in Cy Young's day. Oral Roberts. Like that's who that reminds me of. Like,
no, you know what? That's spot on.
Like,
Yes,
seriously.
that's spot on. I was thinking Moral Oral, which was like a show on Adult Swim. That's the only thing that really like jogged my memory. But old school baseball player for sure.
Yeah, I could see it. He played when there weren't numbers on the back of the jerseys. That's an Oral Roberts player.
Nice. But yeah, moving along, I want to make sure we get to everything. Getting into that next story, which is LeBron James getting injured. All right, so he's out indefinitely with a high ankle sprain, and he's really good about coming back from his injuries, but he is the Lakers. I mean, as you say, AD's been out since I think mid February, so they were pretty much relying solely on LeBron at this point. So now you have a lot of role players and support players that have to come together and get these wins out in the West, where obviously it's not easy. So, Greg, what are your thoughts? What do you think about what the Lakers have going on right now? Can they do it without LeBron?
I do think they could do it without LeBron. They're a well-oiled machine. Do I think they're going to come up to a couple road bumps? Sure. But I don't think the Lakers care about seeding as long as they're there. You know, I don't really think they care about seeding. And then you get AD and LeBron back before the playoffs. I don't think it matters much who they play. But I do think they may look into possibly getting Andre Drummond. Who knows? I think losing Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee is actually coming back to bite them now. Because, Trez is great in Montrezl Harrell, but they don't have the depth in the middle that they did last year.
Marc Gasol is also hurt as well. I think he's coming back soon, but
Marc Gasol also hasn't been good this year at all.
Also true, but he's just, at this point you need bodies, right? And it seems like they're lacking bodies.
This is true.
But yeah, Deck, what do you think? What you got going on?
In terms of trade possibilities for the Lakers, a guy that kind of just not necessarily hit the market today, but just announced that he wants to trade is Aaron Gordon. I think that's a big man that could really, they could make some numbers with him. That could totally fill up the spot of AD being hurt. I think he can play well with the guards they got on that team. I think in LeBron and AD's absence, he's a guy that they could totally use. And, going forward in the future, to have not only just LeBron and AD, but to throw in a guy, to play the five in Aaron Gordon, I think it's something that could really benefit them in the long run, not just for this year, making up for injured time.
Well, that was my other question. I wanted to know what you guys thought about, trade options for the Lakers if they are looking at it. One thing I did see was that for the Lakers, their cap space, they have about 1.5 million cap space. So it's not like they can go out there and bring in someone, anyone. They have to maneuver very well. And when it comes to leverage, they only have one first-round pick that's actually tradable, which is in 2027. So it's not even a very desirable first-round pick. So it's going to be tight if they are looking to acquire a player. But I truly believe that they're going to need to bring in someone. I guess, yes, Greg, I agree with you that, the seeding might not matter to them. And once LeBron and AD are back, really LeBron himself, AD is just, it makes it unfair to most teams. But there's a lot that can happen in between then that I think, you want to be able to have a stopgap. And I believe they need that.
Yeah, I also think, some of the bench guys are going to step up in like a Horton Tucker. You're going to see him, do more because he has to. Like, even a Kyle Kuzma. I know they
opportunities there.
Yeah, people haven't been high on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, KCP, but this is his time to shine right now.
Everyone's right. Like, I think every player now has the opportunity to be the guy. What you say, Deck?
Honestly, KCP, if they're going to make a move, I don't really see a scenario where he wouldn't get traded for in that package, especially.
I agree with that.
You alluded to them not having, a lot of draft capital.
Yeah, I also think that, something that might be more interesting is having Talen Horton Tucker be in a package potentially if you're trying to bring somebody back in, because that's actually maybe for a team more advantageous to take advantage of than the 2027 first round pick. So I think there's creativity that the Lakers can do in order to stay competitive and bring in some depth that they don't really have at the moment. But we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting seeing the LeBron list and AD list Lakers right now.
Steph,
last night.
I'm sorry, Greg.
They lost to Phoenix.
I said they lost to Phoenix last night.
Not surprising.
Shout out to the Suns.
I know your sister's happy, Declan.
Very happy. She didn't watch last night. She's very happy. Listen, Steph. Now, do you think they're going to make any moves?
I mean, I think so. I just can't imagine them resting on their laurels and not trying to make a move for depth or just to have another solid player there, because a lot of it, the universe, the Lakers, they revolve around LeBron. And yes, he's coming back. When he comes back, maybe it's 2 weeks, maybe it's longer. You want to have, again, that stopgap. But moving forward, if you have another reliable player that's outside of LeBron and AD, you're only going to do yourself more favors down when you get into the playoffs and, the nitty gritty. So I think they will. I agree with you, Deck, when you talk about Aaron Gordon. That's a very interesting piece to bring in. Yeah. Just like even if LeBron and AD weren't hurt, just to like have Aaron Gordon, to me is
he's a good three.
Yes, exactly.
But I mean a third piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. He's a good third piece. He doesn't necessarily require. He doesn't have I wouldn't say an ego, but he doesn't require as much maybe as another superstar would as far as touches. But he can be a vital piece to a team. So I think that was a good take.
Shout out to my guy Phil in the comments. Said I scooped Horton Tucker in fantasy, and I hope he goes off. You're not wrong, bro. I definitely do hope he goes off.
Didn't he get traded to the Bucks?
What are you talking
about? Rock? Oh, sorry, that was the other guy. Never mind. Apologies.
No. I'm not talking about PJ Tucker. I'm talking about Horton Tucker on the Lakers.
Okay. But Tucker did get traded to the Bucks, right?
Yes.
You made me look stupid for 2 seconds. All right.
I did nothing of the sort. You did that all by yourself.
There was miscommunication there. Yeah. There's a lot. You can't just say Tucker. It's very confusing.
No, I said Horton Tucker. I said that.
He did said Tucker that in the comments, and then you read Tucker, and I was like, oh. Like
selective listeners.
How the hell is PJ Tucker on the waiver wire? Anyway, no, Manny, I won't pay attention because Horton was not even mentioned. All right. Anyway, sick of this kid. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, one other piece of news I'll say that's out there. Everyone, if you're a Charlotte fan or just a fan of the rookie class, you have LaMelo Ball, who is looking like he's going to be out indefinitely with a fractured bone in his wrist. Huge blow to Charlotte, obviously, and just basketball because, he was impressive. Third overall pick, performing much better than anyone expected to, averaging
not me.
I had him picked as my rookie of the year. But...
all right. It's the you two people. I'm sorry. Everyone else was like maybe toss up. Well, here at Smoke and Mirrors, we knew what was going on. And by we, I mean them too.
We also knew his injury was coming, and we couldn't back out of the rookie of the year pick in time.
True, but he was doing really well. He was leading all rookies in assists at 6.1 and steals at 1.6, but averaging about 16 points a game, almost 6 rebounds a game, about 30 minutes, So he was off the bench for most of the season too. Really impressive player. Sad to see him go, obviously. But who do you guys think is going to be the next up for rookie of the year now that he's no longer in the conversation?
So I think he still has a chance at it because he was so impressive in this short go.
A whole second half, and no other rookie can overtake him.
No. I'm not saying that they can't overtake him, but as a player, he was that impressive because you can't see the turnaround in a historically horrid organization under Jordan's rule, ownership, and not mention LaMelo Ball.
Great.
Yeah. But the one on his heels right now is Anthony Edwards.
Manny just said Ben Simmons is going to win it again. That's pretty good.
That's really good.
I think Edwards is now in the front runner. We saw that tweet from D'Lo. But the one thing I'll say in regards to LaMelo Ball and everything, him being injured, and it sucks because it comes on the heels of he just said the other day that he calls Michael Jordan uncle, Uncle Mike or Uncle, whatever he was saying. And then the next thing now is like, does this make Anthony Edwards? Does this kind of motivate him? Because he made a quote a couple weeks ago about kind of trying not to be fazed by the being the number 1 overall pick. Everyone saying that the Timberwolves should have went with LaMelo Ball. Does this kind of lead him now to be motivated to go pedal to the metal and really try to make a name for himself in this league?
I don't think it matters, to be honest, because in the last 2 weeks, Anthony Edwards is averaging 27, I think 5 and 3. So it's not like he can't put up the numbers,
Additional motivation, though, I think is what Deck's coming from, and I can see that. Yeah, I think it's like it's not that he needed like a chip on his shoulder, but like you could kind of feel it there, and I agree with that. I mean, whatever motivation any athlete needs to get to the next gear, like, take it.
Especially it's not like a random guy. Like not necessarily a random guy, but it's not like a quieter guy. Like, say a Donovan Mitchell, whose father's not, yelling, whose father doesn't have a brand. And that's like kind of where I'm coming from. Anthony Edwards is kind of going to be even the number 2, even though he was picked number 1. They're going to be linked to the, kind of jointed at the hip.
Yes.
So I just thought maybe there's some additional motivation there.
I agree with that. Also, just, speaking about LeVar Ball, obviously that LeVar Ball is just a force. So there's a lot there as far as LaMelo and Anthony Edwards. But
Kyrie's going to
miss 3 games. Kyrie's going to miss 3 games, you said?
For a family matter.
Oh, okay. But yes, with that, we're going to head into break. Stay locked in. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the Giants and their newest acquisition. Look at that face. Deck's excited. I'm sure all Giants fans are excited. Stay tuned. This is Smoke and Mirrors on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, presented by the Sports Hit List. We'll be back.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is Smoke and Mirrors on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Smoke and Mirrors on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, presented by the Sports Hit List. I was over here reading a note from Speedy. But yes, thanks for coming back in with us. As I said before the break, we're talking about the Giants, and they got a nice little piece outside right now, and Kenny Golladay signed him for a 4-year deal, $72 million and $40 million guaranteed. So that $18 million. And one of the holdups, apparently, or I guess hesitations on the Giants' part, was said that they were a little concerned with his rocky relationship with Matt Patricia, who didn't have a rocky relationship with him. He wasn't good.
Yeah.
But also a little concerned about his hip injury, which held him out for 9 games at the end of the year last year. But Giant fan Declan, how are you feeling? You happy? You excited? You think that you guys are going to go to the Super Bowl now? What's going on?
Super Bowl. We're going to be a dynasty, all right? No, I'm very happy. It's a great signing. He's just so complimentary. He's going to be the number 1 in that offense. It's excellent. I love the signing. Listen, we said on Friday, 16, 17, 18 mil would be fine. He got 18 and was it 8? Oh, he was looking for 18 and a half. He got 18.
Yes, he got 18.
Some are saying overpaid. Clearly, I'm totally fine with it. Even if they overpaid by a slight fraction, I'm fine with it. But the thing, and I wish I didn't have to talk about this, is exactly what Dave Gettleman, what that, front office, I almost said administration like he's a president. What that front office is kind of about with him at the head. They are talking about, did this man have a rocky relationship with Matt Patricia? Like Matt Patricia has a leg to stand on and possesses any credibility.
Yeah.
It's beyond anyone. Did the Rams go to Matt to go to the Patriots because he was there? No. Patricia, a guy you didn't hire intentionally, as if he has any, business being in this discussion? No. But it's a great signing, and I'm very happy about it.
What you got, Greg? What's your take? Again, Jets fan, objective take.
Objective take. I got you. For those that are saying it's a slight overpayment, I don't think it is, because this is Daniel Jones' make or break year. Regardless if I think he stinks or not, the way a Stephon Diggs helped a Josh Allen make that jump, you could see a potential jump from Daniel Jones. Although I don't think you'll see it, but the possibility is there when you put a dynamic threat on the outside and you have complementary pieces like Slayton and Sterling Shepard. I'll be interested to see what Saquon Barkley is coming back. To be very honest, I am still in the camp is he's not as good as the way people talk him up.
I mean, I think we'll see. Sorry, go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, I don't think he has to be that good technically. I think he was on like struggling Giants offenses where he had to carry, and he showed that he could be, dynamic and explosive. But he really doesn't have to be all of that for the Giants to do well. And he has enough talent. I think we all have seen the talent that he can, go above and beyond. But hopefully the Giants put enough additional pieces in that offense to not require Saquon to take over.
Wait, hold on. But what additional pieces? They have
Kenny Galladay, John Ross.
Yeah,
Kyle
I'm not
Rudolph.
just talking about the skill positions, like offensive line.
Yeah,
because what lanes he's gonna be running through, right? Like Saquon Barkley did a lot with nothing, but you can't do that every year. And we've seen that, the injuries, you could say that it probably is a part of maybe a byproduct of him potentially trying to do too much when there was nothing there. So that's what I'm saying. Not the skill positions, but more so the offensive line, maybe getting some help there.
You got to
make it easier.
Yeah, I got to ask Declan this question.
Gotta beef up.
If Daniel Jones doesn't have a good year, and do you think that, well, he's gone because they're not going to renew it, but do you think that Dave Gettleman would get fired given how much the Maras seem to like him if Daniel Jones doesn't have a good year with all these weapons? Because at this point, there's no excuse.
Yeah. I mean, so I think Dave Gettleman, especially if they go, 6-10 again or 5-11, if they really regress, I don't see them regressing, to be honest with you. I see them as a 7-8 win team, especially now with Galladay. That's huge for them. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, I think Gettleman would get knocked away completely. He deserves to. I thought he should have been fired 2 years ago. And even I was upset, I don't want to say many because I guess it wasn't many, but I was pretty upset when they hired him back in December of 2017. But yeah, I think it would be time to go. And in regards to Steph's point about Saquon, you're totally right with the way he cuts. He's an excellent running back. He's got top 3 potential. He was, he had that. That's kind of the flash in the pan, that he was when he won Rookie of the Year in 2017. He always goes for the big run, and that could hurt him, and that could kind of be why, with the wear and tear on his knee. I'm not worried that he's not going to come back to full strength because I think he's a sub 25. Well, I know he's a sub 25 human being, and I think he'll be all right. The one thing I'm worried about is this offensive line has been bad now. And we see it in Dallas with Zeke. The Dallas offensive line went from being tops and Zeke was one of the best running backs in the league to now it's getting to the point where why'd you pay him that much if you can't block for him? And he's doing horrible. Not even better than Josh Jacobs. What a fool. Not even going to respond to that.
I didn't see it, but I'm loving the reaction.
I saw you look. I was like, oh, what happened? I was like, oh, good. With his 4-12
I had to laugh.
Yes, exactly. That is the same guy. He said, he said to me the other day, he said Josh Allen played like a goat this year, but he's trash. How do you play like a goat and you're trash? Anyway.
I mean, he was obviously just trolling you, bro.
Clearly. I trolled him back, but it's all good.
What I will say, I'm sorry to cut you off, Deck, but I just want to make sure that we get into everything, right? Because we got a hot topic coming up, and I don't want to skimp on that. Everyone deserves to hear about this next segment. Right. So I just finished up with saying that apparently the 2 players that were really in on helping Galladay come to the Giants was Daniel Jones and Jabril Peppers. Went out to dinner with him, and they had conversations after Galladay spoke with front office and coaches. He had a conversation with Daniel Jones, Jabril Peppers, I guess some other players as well, and he liked the environment. And he liked what the Giants were building, apparently, from what Galladay is saying. I'm paraphrasing. But there was a mutual understanding. He had respect for Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones obviously has respect for him. He likes Daniel Jones's game. Now, that could just be PR stuff where it's just, you're not going to say anything that you don't want to say, especially if you're about to join a team. But what's out there now is that there's a mutual understanding and respect for each other. And good on Daniel Jones. I was actually a little impressed by that. Him going out there and being one of the players that's deciding to bring in talent. Because I love my Jets, but Sam Darnold, wasn't necessarily recruiting. He doesn't feel comfortable doing that.
Maybe he did the Le'Veon Bell thing, though. I don't know how. I don't know.
That was definitely more Jamal Adams with Le'Veon Bell, and he called that out. What I'm saying is there's something to be said about a quarterback that knows he needs help and is like, hey, let me actively be a part of this process however I can. So it's not a knock on Sam Darnold. It's more so just, appreciation for Daniel Jones.
Very proactive.
Yes, exactly. Very proactive. But moving along.
Yeah.
We have.
Can I just go to the fans quick? One funny thing.
Go for it.
Someone just said Drake's the lead back to Manny. So I'm excited to see how this goes over with the little Drake and Josh situation over in Las Vegas. But continue, Steph. I'm sorry.
Good Nickelodeon show. But
great Nickelodeon show. Oh my God. I'm going to binge watch it after this for now.
But yes. So like I said, moving along, we're going into baseball. And This is the discussion that Declan himself started. He put a little poll up there just asking who has the best middle infield in New York between the Mets and the Yankees. You have Gleyber and DJ, obviously, and then you also have Lindor, now our new acquisition for the Mets. I say our because I'm a Met fan. I will put it out there if you didn't know that. So Lindor and McNeil. So the polls out there, I don't know if you have the numbers, Declan. Do you remember what the final numbers were?
It was like 15, 7 or 8 for Lindor. In favor of Torres and LeMay.
So Yankees? Yeah, so up the middle. So
I should have just said the Yankees.
But yeah, so that's what we're discussing right now. And I'm going to pass to Greg. You look very eager. I don't know if you were trying to look eager, but I can see there's like energy teeming from your eyes. It's your whole face. So I'm going to let you start. Who do you think has, as a Met fan, you being objective here, remember.
I'm being objective here.
Who has
I trust him to be objective. I trust him to be objective in baseball. Sorry to cut off your question.
So here's the thing. As you saw, Steph, in one of our baseball chats, I posted the picture, and this topic went wild for the last 20 minutes. And there were some people who brought up some great points in favor of the Mets. However, I'm gonna have to side with the Yankees here. Because to me, Lindor and LeMahieu are washed. They're both MVP type caliber players. So it comes down to Jeff McNeil over Gleyber Torres, or vice versa. While Jeff McNeil, I do think, will win a batting title at some point and is a gap-to-gap hitter, and adequate defense, I do think Gleyber is the more dynamic hitter in this very moment. Doesn't mean it can't change, but if we're voting here and now, I'm going to give Gleyber the nod because of the way baseball is played today, the fact that he drives in more runs, the fact that he hits more home runs, he gets that big knock. And doesn't mean McNeil can't do it. He just doesn't do it at the same rate.
Yeah.
Declan, what do you think?
So I'm very happy to see you pick the Yankees.
Also, hold on, Declan. I always tell Greg he needs to be objective, but I also want you to be objective as well as a Yankee fan. Well, I know Yankee fans struggle with being objective, but it's okay.
Well, don't group me into that, please. First of all, second, stop it. You can say whatever you want about football. Me and you being, for our teams and stuff, but baseball is
a lot of disagreements on football. Yes.
I'm gonna go. So for baseball, obviously, with the Yankees Mets infield, I'm gonna have to go with the Mets, and here's why. Listen, I think that LeMahieu
opposite world.
It's really what
it is.
What the hell's going on today?
It's a freaky Monday instead of a Friday.
I'm excited to hear what my dad and Chuck have to say. But I'm gonna go for this reason. Now, LeMahieu, I think, is better than. I'm gonna say LeMahieu is better than Lindor. We've seen it. He's more consistent. And he's just overall, he's an MVP candidate every year. And he's kind of like McNeil. I feel like he's McNeil. Wait.
Every year?
Wait, what? You didn't just, you're talking to people who know baseball. You can't just throw things out there like that, unverified, unchecked, and expect it to rock.
Well, listen,
MVP candidate this is not Mike Trout we're talking about.
You clowns. Every year he's on the Yankees.
That's very different. The last 2 years is very different than every year.
I misspoke. Every year he's on the Yankees, all right?
I'll give you that. I just wanted to make sure you clarified for our listeners so they know that you're not saying something ridiculous.
Because he was not like he was in Colorado. As far as Torres and McNeil go, I'm going to have to go with McNeil. Just because I think McNeil's more consistent. We see him. This is a guy who's going to hit 315, 320 every year and hit 25 homers. All right? Gleyber, not that he has a hole in his swing. He can be a guy who can hit 40 home runs, bat 285. He's going to probably lean more towards a 30 home runs, 260 or 265, maybe 35 homers. But we even saw it in the shortened season. I don't put too much stock into it, but we see that he's human and that the strikeouts could be a problem. I think McNeil's a more consistent player. I think it's very close. And I think, like Greg said, I agree that he's going to win a batting title someday or at least be in contention for it. But I'm going to have to go with the squirrel on this one.
The squirrel. It's funny he got that name. It's very accurate, though. He does kind of look like a flying squirrel. We're going to break right now. Please stay locked in. Stay locked in. We'll be back soon.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is Smoke and Mirrors on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Welcome back. everyone. You are listening to and watching Smoke and Mirrors, which is presented by the Sports Hit List on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. I'm your host, Stephen Polius, alongside my fellow hosts, Declan Krogman and Greg Polius. And as you can see, we have two special guests. We have Brian Krogman here with us. All right, say hi, Brian.
Hey, Steph.
How's it
Hey,
going?
Greg.
And
hey, Charles.
What's going on, Brian?
Yes, sir. And we also have Chuck from the Sports Hit List. Chuck, how's it going?
Not too bad. Thank you guys for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming on, guys. This has been really great. So I just want to say, so we had Declan's take and we had Greg's take. I'm going to give my take really quickly. For those of you that don't know, I am a Mets fan. I think I said it a few times before. And it's weird that Greg aligned with the Yankees, saying that they have the better middle infield.
Yeah,
But
comment section is telling me that I'm objective for the first time.
I just got canceled
But
for taking the Mets, so.
I will say that I also agree with him. And it's not by a lot, to me, honestly. I think ultimately what it comes down to is what Gleyber can do. I think Lindor, to me, obviously stalwart when it comes to being a shortstop and holding it down defensively, offensively. But Gleyber edges McNeil to me just a little bit. McNeil being a good defender, solid defender, and Gleyber sometimes having, having some issues at shortstop. Yeah, I think about committed 9 errors last year and the year before that in 2019. But it's the athleticism that's the difference for me in what Gleyber can do and that bat. Counting stats matter. And Gleyber Torres is a difference maker. McNeil can help a team. Gleyber Torres to me is someone that is that difference maker on a team. So I would give the Yankees the edge for that reason. DJ is phenomenal defensively, offensively. He's been amazing for the Yankees. Declan, you said it, the last 2 years he's been with the Yankees. He's put up phenomenal numbers. And Lindor to me will continue. I want to see what Lindor's going to be like on the Mets with that lineup. So I'm still going to give it to the Yankees, not by much, but it is close. Brian, I'm going to throw it to you and see which direction you're going in. How are you feeling?
I definitely agree. It's razor thin. I'm not going to bore the listeners with StatCast data. DJ LeMahieu and Jeff McNeil, very similar profile. They can hit the ball all over the park. DJ definitely benefits from Yankee Stadium.
Yes.
I actually side with the Mets because all things being equal, I'm going with the switch hitter and the lefty. If the players were reversed in stadiums, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. I will go with when in doubt, defense too. Now Gleyber clearly has a big year in front of him. He's not a 280 hitter, Torres, but if he hits 260 and he goes 30-30 and knocks in 100 runs, that's great. But it is a big year. So I really do think that I'll take the defense in Lindor. And if we had a draft of 4 players, I know DJ's clutch, but I'm starting my draft with Lindor. Interesting.
You don't think Gleyber can hit for a decent average? All right. I mean, he only has three seasons, and it really gets only 2 because I would say the 2019 season isn't really. 2020 season doesn't really show that much in this counting stats. But it's interesting that you say he can't hit above 280. You think?
He said he's not a 2-hitter.
Yes, I'm saying he can't hit for 280 or above.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think he's gotten in the past. He's gotten a little lucky with the balls in play, but his contact rating and his makeup makes him around 260. But like I said, he could get 90 runs, 90 ribbies, 30 homers. That's all good. Kind of like a Springer type. But he's not 280 to 300 in my opinion.
Okay. Chuck, what you got? What are you thinking? Who are you siding with?
I think you give the edge to Lindor and McNeil defensively without a doubt. When Lindor was a prospect, he was known for his glove. We never expected him to hit for what he's become, and now he's a star without a doubt. And then on the other side, like Brian said, Gleyber is not that good defensively, especially at short, which is one of the reasons why I didn't want the Yankees to commit to LeMahieu, because then that meant Gleyber would have been your shortstop for, the next 4 seasons or whatever, which I don't think is too good. So he does have a big year ahead of him. Offensively, I give the edge to LeMahieu and Torres, not only because of the ballpark that they play in because it inflates their numbers, but also because Torres is still so young and he hasn't even touched to what he could become, what we all thought he would become when they got him in the Chapman deal. So when I really broke it down and everything, I got to give the edge to the Yankees as of right now because what they do on the offensive side of the ball, and I want to see how Gleyber does defensively with a full spring training. I can't really count last year because, everything happened with COVID and they didn't really get that, full-on spring training slate. So I want to see what happens this year. But as of right now, on this date, I give it to the Yankees.
That's 3-2. I'm glad that it went that way. I mean, we have a decision being uneven as they are.
Wait.
Additional information? You got something for us?
Absolutely. So after coming across some new information that Jeff McNeil has a higher OPS with less home runs and less extra base hits than Gleyber Torres, I'm gonna have to switch it. I'm gonna have to go Mets with the Mets duo right here. I'm gonna have to flip on air.
You changed midstream.
I had to change midstream. I was, what it was? As the facts changed, my opinion changed. So shout out to,
or maybe if you heard the opinions, your facts changed.
Well, I mean, one thing I will say is, and it was spoken about, I think, with everyone, that McNeil is a phenomenal hitter, right? He also just gets on base at a higher clip than Gleyber does. What I will say is in that 2020 season, Gleyber didn't hit very well for average, but he got on base as he had 356, I think, on base percentage. He got on base at a better clip than you would expect. It was actually higher than the 2019 season, so he was taking more walks. But I hear where you're coming from. I can see that. Like I said, it's razor thin for me. So either way where it falls, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to switch up on you guys. So, Smoke and Mirrors fans, I'm not going to be that guy like some people.
I got to stick with the Mets too.
But I think I hear the argument for the Mets, and I'm happy to hear Yankee fans talk about my Mets that way. But yes, I think it's it's razor thin. And like you said, Chuck, when you break it down offense and defense, like there's the pros and the cons you see for both sides. Obviously, the pro for offense being Yankees and the pro for the Mets being their defense. And it's going to be something that we're going to see play out this season. Obviously, they're getting a full slate of games, 162 games. Lindor in a new environment, obviously Gleyber and DJ being in the same one. So that adjustment, maybe we'll see how Lindor does. His spring training has started off slow, but I think recently he's been hitting the ball at the park a lot more, seeing the ball a little bit better. So we will really see. But I'm happy to see my Mets in the hearts of these Yankee fans as the better middle infield.
Greg felt guilty that he picked the Yankees, that he was going to get kicked out of the 7 line in right center. That's why he went to Mets.
So we also wanted to talk some fantasy baseball. I know for our listeners and our watchers here, some of you might love fantasy baseball. I know it's not the most popular fantasy sport. I love it personally. If you can't handle making lineup changes every day, baseball isn't for you. But if you love to be interactive, baseball's the best. You don't have to wait Thursday game or a Sunday game, or if it's basketball, it's like maybe you have some guys playing on Monday but no one really playing on Tuesday. So we want to just talk a little fantasy sports for those out there that are looking to play, about to start drafting. Maybe you already have done some mock drafts. Brian and Chuck are there are experts on our panel right now, and they could give you some good information.
Absolutely.
So Chuck, I'll start with you. What are some sleepers out there for the fantasy player that's really trying to get the steal in the draft? Because that's what it always is, right? You want the steal. You want to get the guy that has high value, maybe that you could see, but maybe no one else is seeing him in the same light. So who was like a sleeper pick that you might have for this draft this year?
Well, one sleeper off the top of my head, we just talked about him, and it has to be Gleyber Torres. He had a terrible year last year, but like I said, with everything that happened with COVID, becoming a full-time shortstop, I think that put a lot of pressure on him. And I think coming into spring training this season, you saw he was more calm and relaxed. He shredded a little bit of weight too, which I think is going to help him at the plate. But I really like Gleyber coming off a bad 2020 and, going back more towards his 2019 stats. And a thing that I want to really hit on with that is don't dive too much into what players did last year. Some players were more affected by the COVID stoppage than others. So don't even bother, if a player goes, 280, 35, and 100, only hit maybe like 240, 20, and like 75. So I won't look too much into that. In the National League, I like guys like Ian Happ, full-time center fielder now for the Cubs, has power, was a big-time prospect coming up through the system. It's going to be hitting in front of guys like Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, and I think Jock Peterson's a key pickup for the Cubs, replacing Kyle Schwarber. And I also like Trent Grisham, the center fielder on the Padres. We all remember him for his blunder in the playoffs 2 years ago with the Brewers. He had a solid year last year, kind of shaking off, what happened to him in the playoffs. And now he's going to be hitting atop the Padres lineup, and he's going to be hitting in front of guys like, Machado, Tatis, Hosmer, Myers. So I like to have guys, later in the draft that are in good lineups surrounded by good hitters, because that's going to raise their other stats like RBIs, runs, on base percentage and things like that.
Nice. Yes, that's great. I was trying to take down those notes because I actually agree with you with Ian Happ. That's a player I forget about. I think a lot of the last couple of years, because he has the pop. He was a former prospect, but the average really hasn't been there. He hasn't put it all together yet. So I need those notes because my draft is going to be next Monday.
I got you.
Brian, what do you got for me? Brian? I know you. You're like a guru. I was so for those that most don't know, I was in a baseball league with Brian last year, and he's like a savant when it comes to this stuff. So,
well, yeah, thank you. Fantasy, I definitely follow the game, but you guys teach the game, and you teach players, and you coach, and that's a different animal, and I commend you for that. To me, I like boring players. I like players that are not in the news. That's where the value is. I'm a big Eddie Rosario fan. You can get him middle. He comes out of Minnesota into Cleveland. He hits in front of Jose Ramirez. Minnesota does not like to run. Cleveland does. You might even get 8 stolen bases on top. But he's an underrated guy that just gets passed over, and his numbers are consistent year after year. I agree with you, Ian Happ. I did draft him yesterday, top of the lineup. I also, some of these post-hype guys that we forget about, when Vladimir Guerrero came up, he was there was so much helium with him, and then his launch angle was not very high, and he was hitting a ton of grounders. He is this close. I don't know if it's going to happen this year or next. If he increases his launch angle, Vladimir Guerrero will be a first-round pick.
I can totally see that.
As far as the National League, I like Brandon Woodruff. I think he's an excellent pitcher. Another guy that you're not going to read about in the paper.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pitches in the National League, and there's less in the AL. I like Flaherty. I like Morton on Atlanta. The Mets are going to have a hard time if Morton is healthy because he's a big game pitcher.
I totally agree with you, Brian. That was weird. I
wasn't sure how you were going to approach it, and you just went for it.
Yeah, you're so grounded now.
We'll have a fight at lunch.
Well, when the show's over, it's dad.
Yeah. Obviously, Steph alluded to you're a fantasy guru. We get it. All right, 100%.
I'm an amateur. I just listen. If you want to be good at anything in life, you have to put the work in. So if you put the research in, it's all out there. It's not
Vince Lombardi over here. Yeah,
Brian, I'm going to put your business out in the Sports Hitler streets. I know you say you're an amateur, but you're out here in blue checkmark Twitter leagues, fantasy leagues, and that's not amateur hour.
No way.
You're in the boys.
Trying to be humble.
Absolutely. Seriously. This guy comes in. He goes in 2 fantasy baseball leagues, wins both, and then wins 2 fantasy football leagues. It's unbelievable.
Chuck is right there. Every year he's right at the top. He's another one.
Thank you.
Does the research. He knows every player, and that's really what it is. If you know the player pool, once the draft comes, you're just slicing and dicing. All the prep work is done for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, Dad, who would you say is some late relievers that you want to keep your eye on this year in fantasy, or especially with baseball in general? Yeah,
well, the relievers. Chuck can allude to this. The reliever situation is a mess. You have committees. I'll even give you Tampa. The Tampa Rays last year had 12 different pitches with at least one save. So everyone going with Nick Anderson, 12 different pitches. But a late guy, like there's a lot of buzz around this Tanner Scott now for the Orioles. He's one of those unsexy picks. Who's going to take an Oriole? But you got the guy throwing 101. The pushback is, oh, well, the Orioles are not going to win many games. There's not many saves. Well, the worst team in the league could still win 60 to 68 games, and you can cut that in half. You still might be around 27 to 30. But I wouldn't invest in closers because they are very volatile.
So as far as strategies go, what would you say? Because
Greg. I'm sorry, Greg. I just want to say, Chuck, if Chuck had anything, I want to throw it to Chuck as well.
I definitely agree with Brian. When it comes to closers in fantasy baseball, I treat them like kickers in fantasy football. They're usually like guys that I looked at. Only because you don't know what they're going to be from season to season. And they could, have one spectacular season, and then the next season they have, a 7 ERA, and they're no longer the closer. So that's why I try to –
a la Edwin Diaz.
Right, exactly. So that's why I try to hold off on them until like my very last pick. And we're seeing more committees now throughout the league. So it makes no sense to invest, such a high pick in a guy who might not even be able to help you midway through the season.
That's good advice, Chuck. But what I was going to say for both of you, Brian, I guess you could take it first. So I know some guys like to draft hitters first and try to like solidify, the big boppers, and as opposed to some guys who want to draft, top quality starting pitchers. What do you think the correct approach is to building a championship fantasy team?
So the one most important rule when going into any fantasy league is know your rules. Same thing with the football. If it's 10 yards a point, 30 yards a point per pass, know your rules. Simple head-to-head league, you want a couple of aces because they can make the difference in a week. But if it's roto categories where it's 5x5, for all the listeners, 5x5 is you have your homers, runs, RBIs, stolen bases, and batting average. And on the pitches side, you have wins, strikeouts, ERA, whip ratio, whip/ratio, and saves. Then you want to load up your counting stats. And typically you want to put a lion's share of your draft capital on the offensive side because pitching, as we said, is volatile. Pitching is, as you would know, the injuries come up more. If one thing goes wrong with a pitcher, his ERA could be inflated. And that drops value immensely.
In my dynasty league, we're in a points head-to-head, and it's kind of where pitchers are more favored points-wise than hitters. So everybody's always trying to stack up on arms, without a doubt. And I think another key is to know which positions are deep. In baseball, you got, your 9 positions. So like second base, for example, is pretty weak, to be honest. So take a second baseman before you take, let's say, a shortstop, because shortstop is probably one of the deepest positions in the game. Outfield is definitely by far the deepest position because every team has 3 outfielders. Another thing to look at really is to not reach for prospects. I understand we want, the Wander Francos of the world, the Mackenzie Gores of the world, but the questions with prospects is we don't know when they're going to come up because teams like to keep players down for service time reasons. And then we don't know how big of a role they're going to play once they come up. So why invest a pick in them when you don't know if they're going to be able to help your team or not? And it gets people every year. They take Wander Franco, in the middle rounds, and then they get stuck with him on his bench because he's, killing the ball in AAA, but Tampa won't call him up. So that's my advice. Also, I do like to have depth, especially when it comes to pitching, because guys are more successful. I can't even say the word when it comes to Tommy John. So, if you have your 2 aces go down with Tommy John, then your pitching's looking a little weak. So that's why I like to have depth on the back end. And some pitchers fall under the radar. Like Brian said, guys like Brandon Woodruff, Kyle Hendricks always falls because he's not a flashy name, but he's probably one of the most consistent pitchers in baseball over the past, couple of years. So it's all about depth, filling positions that are weak, and don't reach for prospects.
Some sound fantasy advice.
That was great fantasy advice, honestly. I love that. And what I will say is, to the point Brian made about knowing your league, my commissioner for my baseball league, which was Greg over there, he made this league and supercharged pitchers, and no one really knew
He did the same thing with quarterbacks.
Wait, when did I do this?
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was baseball.
I think
you might not recall.
He supercharged quarterbacks and told us after the draft.
We're talking. Well, you mean the league that was rushed to put together? Yes, we're not talking football.
Okay, so you supercharged quarterbacks. It might be that.
Yeah, it wasn't baseball. It was football.
It affected me in a way that it made it seem like it was every fantasy league I've ever been in with you, and it was frustrating to draft a certain way and then find out after the draft, oh wow, all these people I drafted really aren't going to help me that much because I didn't know what the league was set up to be like. So you guys made
the league. I remember that.
Yeah, you guys made some great points. Really appreciate you, Chuck and Brian, for coming on. Thank you so much. It was great. I hope that our listeners out there took that advice. Hopefully they'll help you win your fantasy league. But that's going to be it for us. Thank you for our guests again, Chuck and Brian, for coming on. I'm your host, Stephen Polius, alongside my fellow hosts, Declan Krogman and Greg Polius. We had a blast today. We'll see you on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Talk to you soon. This is Smoke and Mirrors.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.